For those of you listening right now who are on a fertility journey trying to conceive, you already know how overwhelming and honestly uncertain this whole road can feel.
Yeah, it's an incredibly profound and often very heavy emotional space to be in.
It really is. Whether you're trying naturally or maybe you're looking into IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, or navigating the incredibly intense world of IVF, the emotional toll of just repeated disappointments is massive.
Yeah.
We're talking about months of holding on to hope, tracking every single cycle, right?
Exactly. Analyzing every symptom.
And then often followed by just crushing heartbreak. And it leaves so many of you wondering, usually during those quiet, really anxious hours of the night, if there are additional steps you could be taking. Like, is there something else that could improve your chances before you fully commit to the massive physical, financial, and emotional demands of these intensive treatments?
Right, and it's at that exact intersection where many people begin seeking out integrative approaches. They want to address the root biological factors of poor egg quality rather than just, treating the surface level symptoms.
Which brings us to today. The mission for our deep dive today is to explore exactly how those integrative approaches, specifically we're looking at acupuncture, and customized herbal medicine can address those root biological factors. We've got a really fascinating set of excerpts today from a source titled Integrative Approaches to Optimizing Egg Quality and Fertility Success.
It's a very comprehensive source.
It is, and I want to be super clear right up front. The goal of these therapies isn't to replace your conventional fertility care. We aren't talking about an either-or situation here. Instead, we're looking at how ancient practices intersect with modern cellular biology to optimize your outcomes.
Yes, framing it as a foundation is crucial. We're examining the biological mechanisms of optimization, taking these practices that have existed for literally thousands of years and examining them through the lens of modern metabolic science. It gives us a whole new perspective on cellular health.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with what our source identifies as one of the biggest hurdles, the biological bottleneck of egg quality. And when we talk about egg quality, we inevitably have to talk about mitochondria. I always picture them as these tiny little power plants floating inside our cells.
That is actually a very accurate way to visualize it. Mitochondria are the tiny energy-producing structures inside every single cell in your body. Their primary job is to generate ATP adenosine triphosphate.
ATP, the biological currency.
Precisely. It fuels absolutely all cellular processes. Without ATP, a cell simply cannot function. It can't replicate, it can't develop.
And what really caught my attention in the source is the sheer volume of mitochondria in a human egg. I mean, it is an astronomical difference compared to almost any other cell in the body. Why does this one specific cell need such a massive, specialized power grid?
Because the biological energy demands placed on an egg are immense. Fertilization itself is an incredibly energy-intensive event.
Yeah.
And if fertilization is successful, the cell division and the complex processes of early embryonic growth that follow require a constant, massive supply of ATP. Just think about the mechanical force required to pull chromosomes apart during cell division.
Oh, wow. I never thought about the actual mechanical force of it.
Yes. If the egg doesn't have the energy reserves to execute those processes perfectly, development arrests, or chromosomal errors occur.
Which brings us to the core problem, doesn't it? The source points out that declining mitochondrial function is a primary contributor to poor egg quality. And this decline happens for a bunch of reasons. Age is a major one, obviously, but the text also delves into lifestyle and environmental factors.
Yes, the everyday exposures.
Exactly. Pollution, processed foods, chronic lack of sleep, all of that creates massive amounts of oxidative stress. So the power plants are essentially rusting out and energy production just drops.
And that drop is just the first domino. When mitochondrial function declines, that oxidative stress essentially turns the internal environment toxic to the egg's own development. The egg simply lacks the power to divide its genetic material accurately.
Wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Yeah.
I understand the problem. The power grid is failing. But how does sticking a tiny acupuncture needle in your skin or taking an herbal supplement physically change the energy output of a microscopic power plant? That feels like a massive leap.
It sounds like a leap until you look at the metabolic signaling. Our source material explains that these integrative therapies don't magically insert energy into the cell. They act as signaling mechanisms.
Signaling mechanisms.
They upregulate specific enzymes and proteins that the mitochondria use to produce ATP. They trigger the body's own repair protocols, giving the mitochondria the metabolic support to clear out that oxidative rust and operate efficiently.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the energy generated inside the cell relies entirely on the delivery system of the body outside the cell. We are talking about vascular dynamics, blood flow, and circulation in the ovarian environment.
What's fascinating here is how physical and mechanical these therapies actually are. When a patient utilizes acupuncture and targeted herbal medicine, there is a physical enhancement of blood flow directly to the ovaries. We're physically dilating blood vessels and improving microcirculation.
I picture it like a city's road system. If the roads are narrow and full of potholes, the delivery trucks can't get through. By dilating those vessels, you're widening the roads. And first off, better circulation means more oxygen reaches the follicles, which supports that cellular respiration we were just talking about.
Yes, oxygen is the crucial catalyst for efficient ATP production. But oxygen alone isn't enough. Enhanced blood flow also brings an increased delivery of nutrients. These are the literal raw materials required for egg growth and repair.
And it doesn't stop there. The blood flow also delivers balanced electrolytes. The source notes that these keep the lines of communication open and clear within the cell, maintaining proper signaling and membrane function.
And perhaps most importantly, for fertility, optimized hormone delivery.
Oh, right. Because the maturation of an egg is guided by regulatory signals.
Exactly. A complex symphony of hormones. If blood flow is restricted, those signals are delayed or muted. Enhanced circulation ensures the regulatory hormones are delivered efficiently, right at the correct concentrations.
So when you combine the oxygen, the nutrients, the electrolytes, and the optimized hormone delivery, you're creating what the source calls a nurturing ovarian microenvironment. For anyone listening who's been stressing over their lab results, this is a very tangible concept. You are literally building a healthier home for the eggs to develop in, giving them greater resilience and competence before they even release.
It's a major shift in perspective. Moving from looking at the egg in isolation to understanding it as a product of its environment. If you want to optimize the egg, you have to optimize the soil it grows in. But we also have to recognize what degrades that environment.
And the most common, insidious degrading factor for anyone on this journey is chronic stress. Let's face it, the fertility journey is brutally stressful. Unsuccessful attempts, emotional strain, financial burdens. And it's not just a mental burden, it's deeply biological. It elevates cortisol, the primary stress hormone from your adrenal glands.
Which creates a devastating biological cascade. Chronically elevated cortisol disrupts the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis.
The HPO axis.
Yeah.
The communication loop between your brain and your reproductive system.
It's the master control circuit. Evolutionarily, if your brain perceives constant danger, which high cortisol signals, it shuts down non-essential functions, including reproduction. It interferes with hormonal signaling, and physiologically, it actually constricts blood vessels.
Doing the exact opposite of what we just talked about, narrowing the roads.
Significantly reducing that critical ovarian circulation. Less oxygen, fewer nutrients, impaired hormone delivery. This restriction heightens oxidative stress, impairs the mitochondria, and ultimately lowers egg quality and the chances of successful implantation. Prolonged high cortisol physically sabotages the process.
It's a vicious cycle. You're stressed because you're having trouble conceiving, and the stress biologically makes it harder to conceive. So how do we break it? This is where the source highlights the neurological impact of acupuncture. It doesn't just increase blood flow, it actively interacts with your nervous system. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
The parasympathetic nervous system is the body's natural relaxation response, the counterweight to the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight mode. Acupuncture serves as a biological switch, shifting the body out of that chronic state of alarm and into a restorative rest and digest state.
And the result is profound. Cortisol levels drop. The body restores its hormonal equilibrium. Blood vessels stop constricting, improving flow to the ovaries. It protects those precious mitochondria from further damage.
And beyond the cellular level, there's the lived experience of the patient. Women integrating these therapies report a renewed sense of control, better sleep, improved mood, greater emotional resilience, all of which biologically compound to support healthier egg development.
So what does this all mean? It sounds incredibly logical step by step, but does it work in practice? Let's turn to the hard data. The clinical evidence in our source material is backed by peer-reviewed research, and the statistics are staggering.
Grounding this in clinical reality is essential. The improvements are dramatic. Let's look at the 2023 randomized controlled trial published in the journal Medicine by Shia and colleagues. They looked specifically at acupuncture for women of advanced reproductive age undergoing IVF.
The numbers here solidify the argument. They found that for the acupuncture group, the 2PN fertilization rates in 2PN just refers to a fertilized egg showing two pronuclei, the key marker of normal fertilization. Those rates jumped from 46.4% to 61.9%.
A very significant increase.
Huge. And the rate of high-quality embryos rose from 44.2% to 61.5%. And then the cumulative pregnancy rates nearly tripled, skyrocketing from 18.2% to 50.0%.
What makes that study particularly compelling is that they didn't just track pregnancy outcomes. They performed metabolomics testing on the follicular fluid. They clinically confirmed positive physical changes in the metabolic pathways, directly supporting the developmental potential of the oocytes, the eggs. It proved the shift in the microenvironment we discussed. Yes, the raw natural plant components used to formulate the medicine. These specific herbs target the reproductive system by actively modulating inflammation, improving the rheology, the flow and viscosity of the blood, and providing potent antioxidants to combat cellular rust.
But the results were striking. The oocyte development rate jumped from 32.5% to 58.0%, and the successful pregnancy rate went from 0% to 6.9%. For a population with prior repeated failures, creating a viable path to pregnancy where none existed is massive.
We can also look at the 2024 systematic review and meta-analysis from the Journal of Ethnopharmacology by Hun and colleagues. A meta-analysis aggregates data from multiple trials. This confirmed herbal therapeutics led to a significant increase in pregnancy rates compared to a placebo by directly enhancing ovarian function.
And then there's the 2021 review in Frontiers in Pharmacology by Akbari-Bazam and colleagues. It showed that customized herbal approaches actively regulate folliculogenesis, the multi-month journey of a developing follicle, and steroidogenesis, the production of steroid hormones.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, seeing ancient practices validated by such rigorous statistical leaps in modern clinical trials naturally leads to the question of application. How do these concepts move into actual patient care?
That's the perfect transition. For you listening, how do you actually access this level of care? Our source highlights a pioneer in this field, a practitioner named Mike Berkley.
Mike Berkley's credentials provide a great example of clinical application. He is recognized as the first acupuncturist in the United States to dedicate his practice exclusively to treating reproductive challenges.
He founded the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness in 1998. Over 25 years of experience exclusively focused on this intersection of holistic care and reproductive science.
The defining characteristic of the Berkley Center's approach is intense personalization. It is not a one-size-fits-all model. Every protocol is individualized based on a meticulous assessment of the patient's medical history, specific lab results, and unique fertility challenges.
It doesn't matter where you are on your journey. These tailored protocols are used alongside natural conception, IUI cycles, IVF preparation, or even a standalone support after prior IVF failures. The goal is to maximize your specific chances. If you're curious how they evaluate labs to build these protocols, the source references their website, www.berkleycenter.com, as a great resource to see how this model is structured.
The emphasis on treating specific biological findings bridges the gap between generalized clinical data and the actual lived success of a patient trying to conceive.
So bringing it all together for you today, what we've learned from this deep dive into our source material is that integrative approaches like acupuncture and targeted herbal medicine are not passive relaxation tools.
No, they're active biological interventions.
Exactly. They fundamentally improve the performance of your cellular mitochondria, they increase crucial blood flow to the ovaries, and they lower cortisol by engaging your parasympathetic nervous system.
They physically optimize the microenvironment for egg development, shifting the internal ecosystem from stress and depletion to nourishment and resilience.
And that's incredibly relevant to you, whether you're deep into the grueling schedule of IVF, trying naturally, or just fascinated by the biology of reproduction. Understanding this intersection of ancient holistic care and modern cellular science brings a renewed sense of control. It empowers you to actively participate in optimizing your own microscopic environment.
This raises an important question. We've seen today how shifting the nervous system out of fight or flight can literally change the metabolic energy inside an ovarian follicle. If ancient practices like acupuncture and targeted herbal medicines can so fundamentally rewrite our cellular microenvironment and stress response for reproduction, what other invisible environments deep within our bodies might be waiting to be optimized by finally bridging ancient medicine with modern metabolic science?